Hare Krishna, World Raiser, Sabina and Roger here. Let's read Chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, Sankhyayoga, the Yoga of Knowledge. But before we start, let's set the stage. Let's remember where we are in this epic, on the battlefield. The conches were blown. The tension is in the air. On the one hand, maybe fear, but on the other hand, the courage and the bravery of all the warriors on the field. You know, you just imagine it, feel it, and then let's go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also remember the state of Arjuna, right? Mm-hmm. So totally dejected, withdrawn, hidden in the back of the chariot. He surrendered his bow and arrows, and he's unsure of what to do, and he doesn't know. And it's important to reflect on that. Maybe there's situations in your life. I know for me personally, there's been, big moments of, indecision and big choices to make, and just so unsure of what to do.
Yes.
And then so we can take the wisdom that's about to be expressed by Krishna as like a guiding light for us in all of our endeavors. And much like Arjuna, where he's kind of dejected and ready to surrender, we also need to make our minds suitable, to receive these teachings. So let's just calm our minds and our spirit and our thoughts, and single-pointedly, as good as we can, be here present for these teachings, and very much in a state of receptivity. Trust me, there is nothing more important to do right?
In this very moment. And also everything you already know, maybe for this next 20 minutes, you can put aside and, be open to discover maybe something new.
So this chapter once again starts off with Sanjaya, who is the seer with his clairvoyance overlooking the field of battle. So Sanjaya said, Sri Krishna then addressed the following words to Arjuna, who was, as mentioned before, overwhelmed with pity, whose eyes were filled with tears and agitated, and who was full of sorrow. Sri Bhagavan said, Arjuna, how has this infatuation overtaken you at this odd hour? It is shunned by noble souls. Neither will it bring heaven nor fame to you. Yield not to unmanliness, Arjuna. This does not become you. Shaking off this base faint-heartedness, stand up, O scorcher of enemies.
Arjuna said, How, Krishna, shall I fight Bhisma and Drona with arrows on the battlefield? They are worthy of deepest reverence, O destroyer of foes. It is better to live on alms in this world without slaying these noble elders, because even after killing them, we shall, after all, enjoy only blood-stained pleasures in the form of wealth and sense enjoyments. We do not even know which is preferable for us, to fight or not to fight, nor do we know whether we shall win or whether they will conquer us. Those very sons of
Dhritarashtra,
killing whom we do not even wish to live, stand in the enemy ranks. With my very being smitten by the vice of faint-heartedness, and my mind puzzled with regard to duty, I beseech you, tell me that which is decidedly good. I am your disciple. Pray, instruct me, who have taken refuge in you. For even on obtaining undisputed sovereignty and an affluent kingdom on this earth and lordship over the gods, I do not see any means that can drive away the grief which is drying up my senses. Wow.
Yeah, so very important where Krishna or Arjuna asks, for guidance and surrenders and says, I am your disciple, please teach me. And it's so important. Like it's very difficult, like even in the world, so I've been spiritual for quite some time, but I still don't, try to influence anybody. I don't go say, hey, this is why you need to be spiritual and this and that, because it rarely works, right? In the sense that people need to be seeking, the truth and the wisdom, and if they're not seeking it, then it's just not their time, and you can't force anybody, right?
I love that I'm reading him, because I can see myself totally in his position, not as a but as someone that is doubting the reactions of Warhol.
Sanjaya said, "O king, having thus spoken to Sri Krishna, Arjuna again said to him,
I will not fight,"
and became silent. Then, O Dhritarashtra, Sri Krishna, as if smiling, addressed the following words to grieving Arjuna in the midst of the two armies. Sri Bhagavan said, "Arjuna, you grieve over those who should not be grieved for, and yet speak like the learned. Wise men do not sorrow over the dead or the living. In fact, there was never a time when I was not, or when you or these kings were not, nor is it a fact that hereafter we shall all cease to be. Just as boyhood, youth, and old age are attributed to the soul through this body, even so it attains another body. The wise man does not get deluded about this. O son of Kunti, the contacts between the senses and their objects, which give rise to the feelings of heat and cold, pleasure and pain, etc., are transitory and fleeting. Therefore, Arjuna, endure them. Arjuna, the wise man to whom pain and pleasure are alike, and who is not tormented by these contacts, becomes eligible for immortality. The unreal has no existence, and the real never ceases to be. The reality of both has thus been perceived by the seers of truth. Know that alone to be imperishable which pervades this universe, for no one has power to destroy this indestructible substance. All these bodies pertaining to the imperishable, indefinable, and eternal soul are spoken of as perishable. Therefore, Arjuna, fight."
I love it.
Yeah, so talking about the immortality of the soul and how we're just transitory beings, right? And the unreal is basically the material existence, right? We're manifesting into form, but our true self is the soul. It's the Atman. It's the consciousness. So there's one infinite field of consciousness, the source of all life and existence, Krishna, right? So manifesting as all forms and all of the infinite universes. And so these sparks of the divine, which we are in reality, they're eternal, timeless. So we have always been. Both of them are ignorant. He who considers the soul to be capable of killing, and he who takes it as killed. For verily the soul neither kills nor is killed. The soul is never born, nor it ever dies, nor does it become only after being born. For it is unborn, eternal, everlasting, and primeval. Even though the body is slain, the soul is not. Arjuna, the man who knows this soul to be imperishable, eternal, and free from birth and decay, how and whom will he cause to be killed? How and whom will he kill?
Well, he's talking from ultimate reality right away.
Oh,
he's only talking from of course.
There is only ultimate reality.
There is only ultimate. Okay.
Ultimate reality. So we're deluded and we're in conventional reality. So the world of form and delusion and ego consciousness, and we're identified as these bodies. But really, so from a higher point of view, like we don't exist in reality ultimately as these ego identified beings, right? There's an ultimate reality that is the only true reality, and that is Krishna.
Yeah, but maybe we should make that really sure for the ones that are watching that, this is not to deny, conventional reality, but there is a truth beyond what we perceive.
Yeah.
And Krishna is speaking from that.
From the ultimate.
Yeah. And we can all attain to the ultimate, and then we'll have like the same view.
Yeah, so of course people are going to debate about, there is people killing and there's people dying, in war. But ultimately, there is only one thing, and there is no separate bodies killing each other. It's just a divine play. This is like a consciousness, right? Even our cells and our atom, everything is just energy. It's all just a divine play, right? So, yeah.
I get excited. That's why I'm laughing and smiling and hopefully not giggling too much. But I feel like sometimes it's just when you can grasp it, when you can even feel it with one cell of your body.
As a man shedding worn out garments takes other new ones, likewise the embodied soul, casting off worn out bodies, enters into others that are new. Weapons cannot cut it, nor can fire burn it. Water cannot wet it, nor can wind dry it. For this soul is incapable of being cut or burnt by fire, nor can it be dissolved by water, and is undryable by air as well. This soul is eternal, omnipresent, immovable, constant, and everlasting. This soul is unmanifest, it is incomprehensible, and it is spoken of as immutable. Therefore, knowing it as such, you should not grieve. And Arjuna, if you should suppose this soul to be subject of constant birth and death, even then you should not grieve like this. For in that case, death is certain for the born, and rebirth is inevitable for the dead. You should not, therefore, grieve over the inevitable. Arjuna, before birth, beings are not manifested to other human senses. On death, they return to the unmanifest again. They are manifest only in the interim between birth and death. What occasion then for lamentation? Hardly anyone perceives this soul as marvelous. Scarce another likewise speaks thereof as marvelous, and scarce another hears of it as marvelous. While there are some who know it not, even on hearing of it. People who are still, trapped in ignorance and delusion, and there are many in this world that don't realize that we're souls, that there's a consciousness beyond the physical existence, and some people are entirely identified with their bodies, right? And then so even if you hear these teachings, or you're still so stuck in delusion that you're not going to believe it, right? And so that's why it's so profound that even if you hear something like this, if you're not ready and receptive and in a state of seeking to learn it, you won't hear it, even if it's being spoken to you, right? Arjuna, this soul, dwelling in the bodies of all, can never be slain. Therefore, you should not mourn for anyone. Besides, considering your own duty too, you should not waver, for there is nothing more welcome for a man of a warrior class than a righteous war. Arjuna, happy are the Kshatriyas who get such an unsolicited opportunity for war, which is an open gateway to heaven. Now, if you refuse to fight this righteous war, then shrinking your duty and losing your reputation, you will incur sin. So this is hugely important.
What is going on?
Well, he's talking about Dharma, right? So it's the duty. So he's in the warrior class, and back then, it was a big thing, right? Where you had to protect your borders and your kingdom and, serve king and country and the citizens by, protecting the lands and performing your duty. And if you didn't do that, then all of the land would decay into chaos, right? So, and also being that nobody's actually being killed and nobody's dying, it's just an avenue to, to heaven, in the sense that if you're performing your duty and you're surrendered on to God, right, then you're serving God by performing your dharma. A duality of, you could call it good versus evil, or just more conscious versus less conscious, more spiritually evolved versus less spiritually evolved. And some people are after money and power and grief, like greed, fame or whatever it is, and they'll go to battle for all sorts of things, right? So if people don't stand up to that, Krishna is saying that's a greater sin than just letting it happen. Like, we're all supposed to just give up and then let the world decay into nothingness, into, chaos, and have this turn into a hell on earth. Like, we're in the Kali Yuga now. So what do? Do we all just lay down and give up, or do we seek spirituality and do what we can if we understand, right? Nay, people will also pour undying infamy on you, and infamy brought out on a man enjoying popular esteem is worse than death. And the warrior chiefs who thought highly of you will now despise you, thinking that it was fear which drove you away from battle. And your enemies, disparaging your might, will speak many unbecoming words. What can be more distressing than this? Die and you will win heaven, conquer and you will enjoy sovereignty on the earth. Therefore stand up, Arjuna, determined to fight. Treating alike victory and defeat, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, get ready for the battle. Fighting thus you will not incur sin. Arjuna, this attitude of mind has been presented to you from the point of view of Jnana Yoga. Now hear the same as presented from the standpoint of Karma Yoga, the yoga of selfless action. Equipped with this attitude of mind, you will be able to throw off completely the shackles of karma. In this path of disinterested action, there is no loss of effort, nor is there fear of contrary result. Even a little practice of this discipline saves one from the terrible fear of birth and death. Arjuna, in this yoga of disinterested action, the intellect is determinate and directed singly towards one ideal, whereas the intellect of the undecided, ignorant men moved by their desires wanders in all directions after innumerable aims. Yeah, so he's getting into, so karma yoga now, right? So which is basically, how you fix your actions, single-pointedly, but you're surrendering the fruits, right? So you're responsible for the intention and the action, but not the results, right? So it only really comes about, like in my mind, you can't really practice it unless you do have some wisdom of what he just taught about the soul and about the absolute, and that, because then once you know that, then you know that, okay, this is a divine play, and then what is my duty? What is my dharma, right? And it's to be conscious of everybody else and how they are, and then of your place, which is not the body or the ego mind, right? There's a higher reality to you, and then higher beyond that is Krishna, and we're literally a part of God. Arjuna, those who are full of worldly desires and devoted to the letter of the Vedas, who look upon heaven as the supreme goal and argue that there is nothing beyond heaven, are unwise. They utter flowery speech recommending many rituals of various kinds for the attainment of pleasure and power, with rebirth as their fruit. Those whose minds are carried away by such words and who are deeply attached to pleasures and worldly power cannot attain the determinate intellect concentrated on God. So we very much see this even amongst, religions in the world, is like we're just so focused on heaven, in the next life. And then, so even if you're performing actions, thinking that you're going to attain some future heaven, then we're actually missing the opportunity of right here and right now. It's like, we can serve God now. Arjuna, the Vedas thus deal with the evolutes of the three gunas, modes of prakriti, viz., worldly enjoyments and the means of attaining such enjoyments. Be thou indifferent to these enjoyments and their means, rising above pairs of opposites, like pleasure and pain, established in the eternal existence God, absolutely unconcerned about the fulfillment of wants and the preservation of what has been already attained, and self-controlled. A Brahmana who has obtained enlightenment has as much use for all the Vedas as one who stands at the brink of a sheet of water overflowing on all sides has for a small reservoir of water. Your right is to work only and never to the fruit thereof. Do not be the cause of the fruit of action, nor let your attachment be to inaction. Arjuna, perform your duties established in yoga, renouncing attachment, and be even-minded in success and failure. Evenness of mind is called yoga. Action with a selfish motive is far inferior to this yoga in the form of equanimity. Do seek refuge in this equipoise of mind, Arjuna, for poor and wretched are those who are instrumental in making their actions bear fruit. Endowed with equanimity, one sheds in this life both good and evil. Therefore strive for the practice of this yoga of equanimity. Skill in action lies in the practice of this yoga. Right? So he's talking about, poor and wretched are the people who are always seeking, the fruit. I'm going to perform this action because I want this and I want to gain this and I want to attain that, right? Instead of karma yoga, being in equanimity means, you're not really seeking anything. You're just seeking to perform your dharma and your duty, for the sake of that, to be in the right state of consciousness and to be, focused with your intent of, being a good person and doing your best, because you're already within God. You already have everything. For wise men, possessing equipoised mind, renouncing the fruit of actions and freed from the shackles of birth, attain the blissful supreme state. When your mind will have fully crossed the mire of delusion, you will then grow indifferent to the enjoyments of this world and the next that have been heard of, as well as those that are yet to be heard of. Right? So the states beyond this realm, are beyond our comprehension. So there's no point in desiring to go to some place that we can't even understand. When your intellect, confused by hearing conflicting statements, will rest steady and undistracted in meditation on God, you will then attain yoga, everlasting union with God.
Sorry, I had my eyes closed. I was just in union with God.
I was like, it's your turn, Arjuna.
Sorry, shall we all practice for a moment union with God?
Yes.
To the best of our ability. Krishna, what is the definition, Mark, of a God-realized soul, stable of mind and established in samadhi, perfect tranquility of mind? How does the man of stable mind speak? How does he sit? How does he walk?
Arjuna, when one thoroughly casts off all cravings of the mind and is satisfied in the self, through the joy of the self, he is then called stable of mind. The sage, whose mind remains unperturbed amid sorrows, whose thirst for pleasures has altogether disappeared, and who is free from passion, fear, and anger, is called a stable of mind. He who is unattached to everything, and meeting with good and evil, neither rejoices nor recoils, his mind is stable. When, like a tortoise that draws in its limbs from all directions, he withdraws all his senses from the sense objects, his mind becomes steady. Sense objects turn away from him, who does not enjoy them with his senses, but the taste for them persists. This relish also disappears in the case of the man of stable mind, when he realizes the supreme. Turbulent by nature, the senses not free from attachment, even of a wise man who is practicing self-control, forcibly carry away his mind, Arjuna. Therefore, having controlled all the senses and concentrating his mind, he should sit for meditation, devoting himself heart and soul to me. For he whose senses are under his control is known to have a stable mind. The man dwelling on sense objects develops attachment for them. From attachment springs up desire, and from desire, unfulfilled, ensues anger. From anger arises delusion. From delusion, confusion of memory. From confusion of memory, loss of reason. And from loss of reason, one goes to complete ruin. But the self-controlled sadhak, while enjoying the various sense objects through his senses, which are disciplined and free from likes and dislikes, attains placidity of mind. With the attainment of such placidity of mind, all his sorrows come to an end, and the intellect of such a person of tranquil mind, soon withdrawing itself from all sides, becomes firmly established in God. He who has not controlled his mind and senses can have no determinate intellect, nor contemplation. Without contemplation, he can have no peace. And how can there be happiness for one lacking peace of mind? As the wind carries away a boat upon the waters, even so the senses moving among sense objects, the one to which the mind is attached, takes away his discrimination. Therefore, Arjuna, he whose senses are completely restrained from their objects is said to have a stable mind. That which is night to all beings in that state of divine knowledge and supreme bliss, the God-realized yogi, keeps awake, and that, the ever-changing, transient worldly happiness in which all beings keep awake, is night to the seer. Yeah, so basically, being withdrawn, so understanding that, so the material realm is the conventional reality. And so everything is, in appearance to the mind. It's our minds that are primary. And then this is getting into, like the sense objects are literally like temptation, right? It's just to distract us. And, it's almost like a divine cosmic, I want to say like a video game of like temptation, right? There's just so much out here to distract us and take us away from, who we truly are. Like we're souls, we're spiritual beings, right? But the material world, I don't think, like it wouldn't even exist to the point of it is right now if it wasn't created this way, like, right? Like, so we're given free will and we're given the opportunity to go deep in delusion to the point where we think that these bodies are who we are. Like if it wasn't created that way, then there would be no material realms, because literally, so everything is coming from one source. So everything is literally the manifestation of, Krishna, God, manifesting as all beings, but they're created in such a way that they believe that they exist independently, right?
It's genius. I mean, when you think about it, it's just genius.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And when you see it like that, like it's almost like you don't mind anymore. You're like up for the game, up for the play.
Yeah.
Up for, oh wow, how incredible that in this infinite universe, multiple universes,
multiverses,
in this infinite space, that something can, manifest like that, and you can like also like appreciate it. Like how amazing is that? That is a possibility.
Yeah. It's crazy. So eventually you get from like, why do we exist and why are we in this world? And you're going from a place of like sorrow and, life sucks and why is there so much suffering? To being in a state of equanimity and understanding that, okay, so what is my duty and my dharma in this, divine play? And, without that understanding, right? So he's talking about you need some intellect and some intelligence to understand it. And then you can begin to, calm the mind and be unperturbed, right? So there's going to be pleasures and pain, but it doesn't matter. As the waters of different rivers enters the ocean, which, though full on all sides, remains undisturbed, likewise he, in whom all enjoyments merge themselves without causing disturbance, attains peace, not he who hankers after such enjoyments.
Oh, yeah.
So this is what we just talked about, right? So we're still enjoying marvel, but we're not like hankering after them like, oh, we got to get our fix and da-da-da-da-da.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. But we're not too, I'm not too disturbed, but Sabina will still get worked up if something happens in a Marvel movie that she doesn't like. But I'm like, it's just a divine play within the divine play, right?
Yeah.
With a bunch of, made up fictional characters, which technically we're all made up fictional characters when you think about it, right?
Oh, that's actually really funny.
Yeah, everybody's personality and ego is just a mental construct brought about through causes and conditions and programmed by influences and upbringing.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a program. It's a made up character, right?
Oh.
So, anyways. He who has given up all desires and moves free from attachment, egoism, and thirst for enjoyment attains peace. Arjuna, such is the state of the God-realized soul. Having reached this state, he overcomes delusion, and established in this state, even at the last moment, he attains Brahmic bliss.
Brahmic bliss. I never heard that expression.
I would very much like to experience that someday, Sri Krishna. Thus, in the Upanishad sung by the Lord, the science of Brahma, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, ends the second chapter entitled Sankhyayoga, the yoga of knowledge.
Hare Krishna.
And what a profound, profound knowledge it was just to know about, the soul, right? And that's who we are. And that nobody dies.
Yeah, so let us know if you understand this, if you maybe had the experience of being beyond your perceptions, coming from beyond your perceptions.
Has anybody experienced Brahmic bliss?
Yeah, let us know.
I would like very much to know that, and I would thank you so much for watching our meager videos.
Yeah, someone who have experienced Brahmic bliss here on our channel.
Thank you.
We feel very blessed.
And let us know who you are so we can, keep you in mind. Because then we can all connect our minds together. So it's, very much a collective mind as we raise our levels of consciousness and take in the teachings, together. So
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Let us know if you feel different now after receiving this knowledge. My body feels lighter and it has like a light tingling. It's like,
Me too. Just, reading as Krishna flowing through me to my meager capabilities.
Cool. Then thank you so much for joining. We hope you join us for chapter 3. And until then, maybe over the next few days, you can keep contemplating these teachings and maybe rereading them if you have the text to, let them really sink in and maybe also ripen now that you have planted the seeds. Next time you read it, there might be
contemplate and then, what is equanimity? To be free of attachment.
What is that beyond the mind that is always there? It's never not there. Go beyond. Go beyond. Go completely beyond and experience the Brahmic bliss. Together. You, and us. Brahmic bliss, this lifetime. Liberation, union with Krishna, with God, the Absolute, the Ultimate, our true nature, Buddhahood, Buddha nature.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Peace.
Peace.